like to direct at some of the people on our, so, you know, just so that, I mean, Steve and Becky walk a world of living with what it means to be blind. And so that brings a whole box of questions that might be helpful to understand. Heather dealing with mobility as well as Lila. And Mario, just looking at the, because why don't you say what connection you have with your organization, and that kind of frames it a little bit better.
So I'm a person who lives with mental health challenges, diagnosis of schizophrenia disorder, and bipolar disorder.
And you work with mommy as well,
yes.
And so that mental health piece is kind of working into that invisible kinds of conversations that we don't always address. So, does anybody have any questions you'd like to ask? It's your time.
I do.
CJ.
Okay. We talked a lot about hospitality in generalities, like being hospitable in church. As a local church pastor, I'd be interested to hear from each of you, if you're willing, what things particularly for you, and again, we're not trying to make generalities, we're looking for specifics, like what have made you feel accommodated for, welcomed as part of the body? What are the things the churches you've seen or organizations do well? That make sense?
That makes sense.
You're wanting...
Here, I'm going to give this to you.
I'm just curious what concrete hospitality efforts from churches have made you feel like a part of the church family.
Well, this sounds strange, but saying hello, I think for me, blindness, we're always on stage, even when we're not on stage. And so saying hello is helpful. But believe it or not, some people are afraid to do that because of not knowing how to approach me. What did you say? Talk about that.
One of the things specifically at our church that has been really nice is our worship pastor sends Steve the list of songs that are going to be sung every week, so that Steve can braille out the words. So Sunday morning when we're all standing and singing, Steve has the words available. So.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit in a unique situation where I have grown up with a disability. I have cerebral palsy, and then my sister is also disabled and has a number of different disabilities. She also has CP, she has epilepsy, she's legally blind, and so she lives with my folks and is full care under living with my parents. And I think watching her in a church setting has been more enlightening, because me, like I've said before, I'm obnoxious and I'll say hi and I'll say what I want and what I need. But when you're dealing, especially with someone who's nonverbal, what happens more often than not is people, whether intentionally or not, pretend they just don't see them. So we've often gone into, when we were looking for a new church as a family, that was difficult, because people will kind of look anywhere but where your disabled person is. And so I would say, saying hi is a big deal. Saying hi to the disabled person and not to the caregiver or parent is a big deal, whether you think they can say hi back or not. And then hopefully moving beyond hi. Hi is a great starting point. But hopefully eventually with time you get to move beyond that and get to know the person. You got it? No, see okay.
Well, I am member passed, if you haven't noticed. I don't take much good church. And so, when I went to the greeting time, I straight seated, and it's up to other people to come up to me to say hi, and sometimes they don't. So what I've done is I've prayed that the people that I'm supposed that do come up so that when they don't, it's okay. So another thing is I'm single. And a lot of people go out and bubbles. They don't ask where to go. So you might want to think about how to include single people, whether they're disabled or not.
So, sorry. For me, the biggest, I've always shared, so I have a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder and bipolar disorder type 1 with psychotic features. And the best way to give an example of that or describe that is basically a light version of schizophrenia, in that it's not persistent. So it comes and goes over a certain period of time within the year on average. But oftentimes when people hear and see me, they think, oh, nothing's wrong. I'm wearing white and focus frame is just a fashion statement. I've heard so many different things. But they don't realize I'm actually fighting to stay grounded and not be psychotic, like actively every moment of me doing what I do. So for me, the biggest barrier that I've shared with folks, because my mental health challenge is invisible, or my condition that would be disabling is invisible, the biggest barrier that I've faced was unbelief, period. That's been the biggest barrier. So being in my community, the African American community, being in a large faith community, automatically folks are assuming that, oh, he's acting out, he's trying to get attention. And I think at one point, even folks at some point kept saying that I'm normal, that I'm fine. So I believe that I was normal, that I'm fine. I don't claim anything, which I get. I understand that philosophy or that method of faith practice. But the more I kept believing what they were believing, that, oh, I'm normal, I'm fine, the worse I was getting. So at some point I had to, I was found on the freeway twice because of my diagnosis, which is challenging because I have a faith tradition that believes in angels. Well, if and when I become extremely psychotic, I've had the experience where I feel that I'm seeing or hearing angels, but it got to the point where I was found on the freeway twice because of that. And so that's where I was like, okay, I think we're at the edge here of what's allowable and what's not. The worst of my experience has been me believing that Jesus, the voice of Jesus, was asking me to commit suicide. And that was just a couple years ago in Portland. All I can say is I had a 90-second gap window where I had a moment of clarity. I knew that the gap was going to close up again, and that if I didn't call 911, that thought was going to take over and I would have carried it out. So I ran down, shared that with my mother, and we made the call, and I was brought in. There's more behind that story, but the biggest thing for me that has been helpful has been belief. That's it. yes, it's nice for people to be nice to me, but I think people like automatically do that because they think that I'm okay. Until they start asking questions, you know, are you Catholic? Why do you have that rosary? You know, or why do you wear all white but your socks are black? You know, why is this and all? You know, they ask specific questions, and then that kind of prompts me to share and let people know. And then I'm learning that as I do that, I'm actually building awareness, educating folks, and building, kind of like insulating myself with protection. Once people know, then they can help me protect my own self against myself. So that's, I would say that's the biggest thing, you know, believe.
I have a question. Steve, I'll start with you because I know you, but anybody can answer this. Steve, I always make sure to say hello to you so that you know I'm nearby. And of course, because of your sense of humor, one of my favorite things that you say to me when I say hello to you is say, "Hi, Brad, nice to see you." So,
You ugly, by the way. Go ahead, Greg.
anyway, you know, so much of what we focus on in this kind of discussion is how can we help you? One of the things that I'd like to hear more about is what does it look like for us to recognize that people with disabilities bring things to the church that we wouldn't have if it weren't for you? What are ways that you help us? And Steve, because I've known you for several years and I've been in lots and lots of meetings with you and listening to you talk about things, as a sighted person, I've learned much from you about what does it look like to be in the church, what is it like as a person who experiences blindness, and you've helped me understand things that I wouldn't be able to understand except from someone who experiences what you experience. So it brings a great benefit to me as a leader, as a church person. How do you guys, what does it look like for you to be appreciated for the fact that you bring a benefit to the church because of your different disabilities?
That's a powerful question, and thank you. Well, first of all, I've been blind since birth, but I could not say I'm blind until I was in my mid-40s. I would tell you I don't see too well. My vision isn't very good, so nice to see you is one of those, it's okay, it's metaphoric and it's all right. And I can make up my own picture about what you really look like, but that's not really the thing. The thing that's more important for me as a person with a disability, and quite frankly there have been moments of isolation, is when people will come to me and invite the next possibility. Hey, would you like to join us in blank? Or what gifts do you bring to the conversation? Or if the truth is, if you and I are going to get together physically, someone has to drive me there. Or in the old days, if you were my employer, I would take 2 buses, which would take an hour and a half to get to you and an hour and a half to get back. I don't have to do that anymore. I can get a ride, or you would come to me, or my dear wife, who maybe she can talk about this a little bit. Where's the line between having to be my driver versus being my spouse? Because it's time and energy that's really more important. So in the church context, it's helpful if someone could be sensitive to, hey, Becky doesn't need to come and get him, why don't I do that? Or if we're going to be on a committee or be on a board or something like that. So I don't know if that gets to your question or not. So, you know, we live too far apart, but at least, and we also have common things. You and I can talk about sports, right? Besides the Lord.
I told him I'm really good looking, so don't blow my cover. So the question was, what value?
Really, what is your experience of having the church, not just thinking how can we help you, but what are the benefits that you bring to us as the church simply because of your disability? You can see things in a way that we can't. You can understand things in a way that we can't. How have you experienced that? How important is that to you?
I think for Steve and I, personally at our church, we are both on a disability task force, and there are about 6 of us that are on this, and all of us either experience disability or live with somebody with a disability. And so we are implementing or have implemented the buddy system at church and, are growing this ministry to make church more accessible to people with disabilities and families with disabilities. And so I think that's because we live disability day by day, moment by moment, we can be instrumental in helping the church be more open and accessible for other families that are experiencing disabilities.
Can I say one more thing? I want to, back to your, okay, I get your question. Brad, it's really spending time with the individual. That's the best way. What value do I bring? I don't know if I can, well, I could think, I know what some of the values I bring, but that feels bragging about yourself. So I'd rather it be someone tell me what value do I bring coming from someone like yourself rather than me telling you, here's my value to this church. That feels uncomfortable to me. I'm a person I've been gifted by God, and I hope that people can see my gifts and I can go with that.
Steve, I have a question building off of something you just said. My name is Haley. You mentioned that for 4 years you didn't say that you were blind. You said, I have trouble seeing, or I have, you said, you used a different vernacular. I feel like there's a level of intimacy that comes with when you speak about your disability or even your mental health challenge. Like there's a level of intimacy when you talk about that with somebody. Do you ever feel like there is a comfortable way for somebody that doesn't know you to engage that with you? Like if I were to come up, I don't know any of you. If I were to come up and talk about that with you, is that something you're comfortable with, or would you just is there a way to approach that is comfortable for you? Any of you can answer that. I'm curious, because I feel like that takes some knowing, you know what I mean?
For me, it's an evolutionary process, because I'll redirect you if you're doing something that's not, I'll say, why don't you just drop your arm and I'll grab your elbow. I just take charge of the situation, so I'm fairly approachable. And I teach and train in a lot of classes, and up front I'll say, if you raise your hand, I'll never call on you. It's okay to use the word see or look, so I'm informing the people how to relate with you, okay? But that didn't happen in the beginning. That was a long time coming, so anything goes for me.
I would speak to that too. I think both Steve and I are very comfortable with his blindness, and we can have fun with it, if you will. A very long story short, I was at work one day, called to see how some progress was going at home. The boys had gotten a basketball hoop, and I had been very specific about where this basketball hoop was supposed to be mounted, and things were going awry when I called to find out what was going on. And so I told Steve, you cannot put it where the boys said. It has to go on the house, above the garage. It's a visual thing. And I got off the phone, and my coworker looked at me, and she was aghast that I would even remind Steve that it was a visual thing.
We were going to do it by the flowers, remove some flowers.
I said, he knows he's blind, okay? It's okay for me to say that.
There's a couple of questions that I want to answer. As far as your question about comfort in approaching somebody with a question, I think a respectful tone is always huge. If somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I have a question, I noticed that you have walking sticks or something like that, then I'm going to be usually very on board with, okay, they're not, trying to label me. I've also gotten approached and had things like, oh, my cousin has MS too. I don't have MS. And that happens to a lot of disabled people, is somebody will know one disability and they will then they will apply that to every single disabled person that they see. Don't do that. It's not a good thing. Doesn't really work for anybody. So I think the respect is a huge part of it. And the one other thing that I would say, just out of experience, if you see somebody and you have a question, try to be respectful of their time. I can't tell you how many times I've been about to walk into something or about to walk into a store or an appointment, and a stranger has tried to rope me into a 30-minute conversation when I'm going, I need to like run in and grab my salad and go. You know, and it's, you know, people want to talk and people want to connect. But just like anybody else, I think respecting of time is really important, and that sometimes goes by the wayside when somebody gets really excited about making a new connection or learning some new information. And just while I have the mic, to Brad's question, you know, it's a little bit hard to answer, because I don't think that able-bodied people get approached with what do you bring to the table? Welcome to our church, what do you bring? So in a way, I would like to say, it goes back, I think it was Steve or someone that said, it comes down to knowing people, and in some sense, this is a little bit counterintuitive being at this conference, but in some sense, there's a level at which you kind of have to put the disability aside. You have to recognize it and know how to interact, but you also have to not be so focused on covering your bases with making sure that you have the disabled person in the right whatever, that you forget that under all of it, they're a human being who has gifts and talents just like every other person has gifts and talents. So I know sitting here that balance is not easy to find, but it's findable, you know. For me, I just kind of went and showed up and was like, here I am, and I'm going to talk to you forever, and you're going to figure out what I'm good at. For my sister, being nonverbal, that just means including her as part of the church family. One of the things somebody mentioned today, one of the things that my sister does is she loves music, and but she's nonverbal, so she doesn't sing. She kind of like yells and shouts during worship, in a happy way, not like a scared way, but she's not singing words. But it was really important to my family and to her that nobody went, can you please keep your daughter from making these distracting noises? She's not able to sing the words, so this is how she is participating. So I think making space for however somebody can participate is really important.
Majority of the time, I forget that I have 3 and I hope my friends do too, because what who you are is more than what you look like. So when people talk about me, there's all kinds of rumors. Oh, she's smart, she's funny, and they carry on and on. And that's important to do. A few months ago, a new friend of mine and I took a trip. She was my caregiver. and I got this email saying, you need to tell your caregivers what you need. And it's good for them and you to ask. Maybe I should spell everything out, but I forget. Because I am who I am, and that's it.
So, try to answer both of those. The first was the benefit. I didn't necessarily know that it was a benefit until people started saying, but I had shared this at dinner with a few folks at the table, that one of the things that gives me joy is in knowing that I can prepare for the next event, the next psychotic event or break that might take place. And the way I do that is by filling out a safety plan, an advanced directive for mental health, disclosing to people, because if there's an event where I'm offline, per se, then I know that there's going to be some people there to activate the plans that I put in motion when I was online. So I think a few folks have said to me they appreciate me doing that because it almost, I don't want to speak to like irresponsibility, because it can be a little bit tricky for disabilities that are invisible, in that some folks want the full neurological freedom that they would love, that they technically had before they were diagnosed. And some people may play on that. I've definitely have seen that before, but some folks have told me that they appreciate the fact that I've done those things because it sets the tone and it sets a great model for other individuals who have similar challenges, disabilities that are invisible per se, to be more proactive rather than reactive or quite frankly angry when others are trying to implement safety measures when an event takes place and that person may not have put things in place, a safety plan or advanced directive, their requests in the event that something like that has happened. So taking ownership is probably a huge piece around accepting that there is something wrong, that there is something going on, and then modeling for other individuals where you do have power and freedom. I don't have full control over how my brain may perceive color or faces, why my brain may tell me that I can't tell the difference between a human or an angel or a demon, at least in those terms that I've been taught. But what I can say is I have joy in knowing that I've done everything that I'm supposed to do to get ready for the next event, so I'm absolved of that kind of guilt. So yeah, and then the last piece around what you had kind of said, like how people should approach you, or it's a double edge for my condition in that, and I'm thinking of like an employment situation where folks want to be treated like everyone else in line who has the same kind of condition that I have. But then if something happens, you feel like you lose the graces or the mercies that normally come with the fact that you have something or that you've disclosed to people that you have something. So you want to be acknowledged for like good work, hard work, credibility on your job per se. And then if something goes wrong, you don't want them to blame it on your condition. Well, then that means you also have to take full onus and ownership of what went wrong. So there's a double edge in that you want those kind of graces and mercies that normally come with knowing that you have a disability or knowing that you have a condition that may come with that. But then the other piece is you also want it to be treated normal, or you want to be part of the broader community. I shouldn't say normal, but part of the broader community. We say neurotypical. for mental health community. So it's tough, but yeah, I don't want to be treated too much like one or the other. And I'm learning to balance too. I'm only like 5 years, 6 years since my diagnosis, so I'm still learning that balance.
I have time for maybe one more
Yeah.
question. Go.
What was your name? Mario? Mario? I wanted to ask you how you kind of work through other people's unbelief and how you work through how that negatively affected you and were able to be more honest despite how other people reacted.
I still am. I shared with people before, it's a bit of a joke, but it's true. Like when my family found out about my bipolar disorder, they said, just give it to God. And I said, I will as soon as I can find it. Have you seen my bipolar disorder? Like it's a pair of keys sitting somewhere. Sure, I'll give it. But yeah, so yeah, plug for the comedy show that I'm having on October 4th is a mental health comedy night. You're all welcome to attend. It's in Portland, but I'll tell you more about that. But despite having psychosis, I liken that experience to like a storm. The eye of the storm is supposed to be this quiet, peaceful, silent place, and to me it reflects Christ so much. Literally, like an actual hurricane or actual tornado from what I've learned. Could be wrong, but from what I've learned, the eye of the storm is peace. I finally have learned to find that spot, knowing that I got to go through the other side, and so until the psychosis is completely over. In those times, that's when I feel like I'm still hearing from the Holy Spirit, from Christ, where it's like, hey, be patient with your mom. She doesn't even know fully what you're dealing with. She's trying her best. There was a moment where I was in my room and I was just so angry about like why are they not getting it? Why is she not figuring this out? I had an experience where the Lord literally was like, she's watching her son suffer, and I was sitting in my room with the door open and I walked and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm her son, she's watching me suffer. Oh, okay, I'm gonna have to, because it was like a kind of a double play happening. I'm depressed, she's depressed because of what happened to me. And so I wasn't getting better. I came to Portland to recover. And there's so many other things that were going on with my mother that I didn't even, we had, just to give you a background, like there was food in the cupboards that were expired from 1997. And I just got back in 2014. And so, God revealed to me, you thought you were coming here to get help for your recovery, when they haven't even recovered themselves from things that happened. That was the year that my mom divorced my father. And there was like 2 huge bags full of canned goods. And she had moved into this new house. I'm like, this is amazing. So, speaking to that, despite having psychosis at times, there are times and moments, even if it is brief, just like the 90-second window that I described, where if all God can get in is 2 words, it's enough to calm me and to allow me to cope properly with whatever. So he has spoken to me in times where I'm like, okay, I get it. Outside of the recovery education courses, outside of NAMI, he will use scripture that completely counters the challenges that I'm dealing with in my brain. And so then I become patient. And I'm like, okay, just as much as I'm learning, they're learning too. Because they don't know. On top of the cultural barrier, there's just education, period. The African American community oftentimes is in disbelief when it comes to mental health challenges. We barely go to the doctor. So, let alone for something you can't see. That's a whole nother level. We're not there yet. We barely got diabetes down. So, and I'm not trying to be meaner, it's just true. Statistically it's true. So the Lord is reasoning with me in that way, yeah,